Amanda, this won't surprise you at all. News overnight, Sydney, Melbourne and Adelaide and Brisbane's not far behind have been declared the least affordable cities to buy a house in. We're seeing a government who continually adds to pressure by massive migration, which I started the show with today. Amanda, Sydney, the only place in the world more expensive than Sydney to buy a house is Hong Kong. I mean, how can young people and all these migrants that we're bringing into the country ever buy a roof over their head?
Absolutely. And we need to be very clear here that it's actually a problem that's been going on for a long time. So, you know, a decade ago, they should have been thinking about this, and not just the last 2 years. And we need to be talking about people being able to buy a home and not just build to rent. We need to make sure we're not pulling away from helping people actually get their first home or families get a home, because all the narrative is now is community housing and build to rent, and that's dangerous.
Yep. Gary, Brisbane would be right up there in that unaffordability bracket, wouldn't they?
Absolutely. Close to $1 million seems to be the price now in southeast Queensland. Look, having a housing crisis is like getting mugged by a tortoise. You can see it coming for a long time. And until state governments actually release land, and we've got so much land that we don't use, we need new Australian cities. We actually need a half a dozen other big cities, because the current big cities are not coping, and we need to create new big cities, new infrastructure that goes with that, and that will actually create economic development for the migrant class to move into. I think that's part of it, Steve. It's a big discussion. It's got to be had.
Amanda, were you a fan of Neighbours? And if so, Holly Valance, because she's turned out to be one of Donald Trump's biggest cheerleaders. She's married to a billionaire. She had this big function at her mansion in Chelsea, raised more money than anyone else in the world has outside the United States. She's got a sister who's got exactly the opposite politics. I mean, it's fantastic. I think she's brilliant.
Look, I tell you what I'm enjoying. I'm enjoying how many people are being triggered by the fact that she married a billionaire and she's got an opinion, because you're not allowed to have an opinion if you get out and you marry a billionaire. But what's really interesting is that everyone's got a problem. Everyone's got a problem with her raising money for Trump and, married a billionaire type thing. But no one had a problem with Albanese hanging out in a billionaire's home while people couldn't afford to pay their rent. So, you can't say, I like that billionaire, but not that billionaire.
Gary, you've got the situation where the man who's standing against Donald Trump, we've seen these pictures today of poor old Joe Biden. He was at the G7 and he started wandering off, right of screen. The Italian Prime Minister, she had to go and drag him back into the middle of the meeting. This is almost elderly abuse, isn't it?
Oh, absolutely. And the last thing you need to do is to feed an 81 or 82-year-old bloke with jet lag, because he thinks he's still on the beach of Normandy. He still thinks he's at last week's event. He actually saluted the Italian Prime Minister at one stage in the last 24 hours. It's very sad. It's sending the wrong signals to the enemies of the West, and there's plenty of them around the world. We have a very weak and woke President of the United States. That is why the world is in peril. I can't wait till Donald Trump is back there, because, frankly, he's the only hope for the side right now to get world peace. Pretty simple.
Yeah, I think that's right. Amanda Rose, Gary Hargrave, always a pleasure to catch up with you both. Thank you very much for joining us tonight.